Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday. Forget Taco Tuesday, forget Taco Wednesday. We've got so many days of the week, but it's Monday. Trump needed an off ramp. It is Taco Monday, and mainstream media did the very best this weekend to try to make sure that everybody lived in an alternative reality, including and not limited to one Scott Bessent, who's now doing oil jujitsu. Yes, that's right, oil jujitsu. We are in the dumbest of times. It has never been a more dangerous time, specifically to travel to the United States. We've got a story about that includes a very sad turn of events that happened at LaGuardia yesterday. We have a couple of Air Canada pilots dead. We've got some severely injured Canadians that landed at LaGuardia. It is all coming down in and around Donald Trump, and I am, as always, in receipt of those receipts, as is my very good friend, the co-founder of the Save America movement. He is a political strategist extraordinaire. He's he's won a couple of big campaigns, including one for president. He served as the senior advisor to George Bush. He also helped win a campaign for one Arnold Schwarzenegger and rode shotgun for the incredible campaign of one John McCain, who we all miss incredibly today. And we've got some Lindsey Graham clips to play for you when it comes to that. So without further ado, this is Dead Air, where we go through and we look at what everybody did or did not talk about, the dereliction of duty when it comes to media, what is going on in the media. And to join me to have a chat to this afternoon, please welcome the co-founder from The Warning, co-founder of the Save America movement, Mr. Steve Schmidt. Steve, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Dean. How are you? It's good to
Good.
see you.
I hope that intro, was warning-esque.
About to warn people about a lot of warnings that have to be
Yeah.
transmitted to the people.
Yeah, today's no different. I mean, we said that we would set up this Monday to kind of go over what happened yesterday because the
Yep.
dereliction of mainstream media is never been more apparent. We live in this golden age of fear when it comes to trying to communicate with people. Freedom of the press is not free. You and I have chatted about it several times that the mainstream media, Donald Trump got this right. They appear to be the enemy of the people, and they are now the enemy of the people because they are on side with Donald Trump. Whether or not they have been threatened by him, taken over by him, by the Ellison Group and Skydance, whether or not the consolidation is part of that conversation, doesn't matter. The air of fear was apparent yesterday in our scorecard. Margaret Brennan led the way. She was sensational, holding some feet to the fire. And then we got all the way down to Fox State Media, Trump State Media, who,
You
if you
gave them
want.
an F. Gave them an F. So I like the scores. Like I like the grades. I like the
Yeah.
grades that you're giving. And this whole idea so that the Save America movement is going to publish this. You're doing this every week, but you're going to review.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a necessary thing to do. You're going to review these Sunday shows, and hopefully we'll get some good circulation going on this. And you're going to give everyone a grade, and then we're going to talk about it here on Dead Air on Monday. We're going to go through the grades. We're going to go through the clips. We're going to talk about these Sunday shows because this is where Trump's top minions show up and they expose themselves to questions. And after 12 years, the truth of the matter is you've had very few good questions asked in really over a decade. Maybe you've had 10 good questions asked at most of any of these people. And so we're going to go through these Sunday shows. You are the grader. You're the professor.
You, sir. Appreciate that.
You're the
Yeah,
judge.
last week's grades didn't get a passing grade from you. The professor
No,
emeritus.
no.
You're too fucking nice, dude.
The Canadian judge is very just. You're very fair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, let's go through it because, Trump didn't decide to end the war based on a bunch of phone calls and fake conversations until the day after we had our Sunday news roundup. And traditionally, Sunday is when everybody gets together. You get a little coffee talk, right? You get Margaret Brennan or John Carl or, Dana Bash, Jake Tapper. They sit down and they chop up the biggest stories of the week. What gets missed is almost as egregious as what gets glossed over. I'll start with Face the Nation because Margaret Brennan was incredible. And wrote an incredible piece about this. Margaret Brennan consistently is easily the most, she's consistently the most dogged when it comes to not letting people get away with that follow-up question. She's consistently, the most responsible when it comes to how she tries to suss out the intentions of the guests. But, the intentions of the guests being what they are. And you know how these Sunday shows work. You send out a group of 3 or 4 of your minions and they do roll call. They go through all 5 of these
Right.
daily news shows. They're not pundits. You got the energy secretary, Chris Wright, last week doing all the war heavy lifting, which was fucking unbelievable. And then you had Scott Besson. And I want to ask you about Scott Besson, after we play this clip, Mike, because this is one of those clips. And this is the clip where he's talking about doing oil jiu-jitsu. Well, we talked last week about the economic disadvantage that this war is presenting the United States of America. Not only is Scott Besson the Treasury Secretary, who doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever when he talks about giving Iran the opportunity to sell some oil that is at sea, letting Iran and letting Russia off of these sanction lists. But then he tries to explain it like, no, you don't understand. We're using their oil against them. We're using their money against them. Let's play this clip and then we'll get your thoughts. Mike?
So which is better, Kristen? Which is better? If oil prices spiked to $150 and they were getting 70% of that, or oil prices below 100, it's better to have them where they are now. And to be clear, we had always planned for this contingency. About 140 million barrels are out on the water. In essence, we are jiu-jitsuing the Iranians. We are using their own oil against them. We have a much better line of sight, to be clear, at Treasury when this oil goes to, if it goes to Indonesia, if it goes to Japan, if it goes to Korea, we have a much better line of sight and are able to block accounts that the oil goes into. When it goes into China, it completely gets recycled. So to be clear, that 14 billion number is grossly overstated.
Perfectly clear. How great would it have been? I think she gets an A. This is how, I give you an A. What if she had looked and she had just been, what are you talking about, Willis? Right? What else could be said there? She was just like, what are you talking about?
What was that?
What is that? It's gibberish. It's complete nonsense. If you were sitting up there,
yeah,
and that was your question, I think it's a good question. Right over the middle of the plate. Right, not but a necessary question. Nothing wrong with the question. And that's the guy's answer. Now it's game on, right? Fish is on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say next? What should be said next here? If you're Kristen Welker, you're sitting there, and he's talked for a while. You got some time to think about it.
I mean, if I'm Margaret Brennan and I'm sitting there listening to that, in my mind, not only does it not make any sense, I need a definition of oil jujitsu. I want to know how that works.
Oh, excuse me, that's with Brennan. That's with Brennan, not Welker.
Right.
With Brennan, okay?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. I would like to know what the fuck you just said. That would have been the first question out of my mouth. What does any of that mean? Number one, in the words of Arnold from Different Strokes, what you talking about, Willis? That's
absolutely. What are you talking about, Willis? And has this oil jiu-jitsu been used before? Or has Trump invented this as a new form of power, diplomacy, whatever you may wish to call it?
I don't know what it is, though, Steve. You've got this look on your face where you're getting ready to laugh, but you're not sure if you can because you know you have.
No, I don't understand.
That's the Secretary of the Treasury.
Oh yeah, Secretary of the Bitcoin. These guys these guys are a preposterous lot. They're going to be hard to explain. They're going to be hard to explain. History is going to have a terrible judgment of them.
Yeah.
And of us as a people. Really incredible.
Yeah. That's why Margaret didn't get an A+, by the way, because she didn't go, excuse me. I need to know what this oil jiu-jitsu is. I need to know what relieving sanctions on this regime that you're now actually allowing to go out and make money to fight us, to fight you. That to me was the logical follow-up question, because not only does it not make any sense, but in the reverse, what you've done, your oil jiu-jitsu, is allow them to make, a shitload of money because of where Brent crude is, because of what you're doing to Iran, because of the fact no one can get any oil through the Strait of Hormuz. So explain how this jiu-jitsu thing works. Not only could he not explain it, he then went in a series of circles in that explanation. And it's so preposterous. What am I trying to say? Preposterous. That's what I'm trying to say. It's so fucking ridiculous. That was what I should have went with, right? Fucking ridiculous. That anybody sits there and watches any of this on a news show and goes, well, that's the Secretary of the Treasury. Probably means something that I don't understand. And that's the loop that a lot of people get sucked into. And he did it again when it came to Donald Trump being asked by Margaret Brennan. Said, hey, listen, Robert Mueller died this week, and Trump put out a tweet that said, good, I'm glad. So he can't hurt any human beings anymore. I want your thoughts on it because you wrote a piece, but let's play the clip, because the explanations, we're all just like, yeah, but do you have an idea how hurt his feelings were during that?
This is amazing. It's amazing.
If you could play it, Mike, it'd be great.
President Trump have said this does not need to continue.
Well, I'm telling you, what needs to continue is to make sure that the largest state sponsor of terrorism can't get a nuclear weapon to blow us all up and hold us hostage. To the American people, they were 2 weeks away from having 90% enriched uranium to make 10 bombs. They've got missiles that go 4,000 kilometers. We're not going to live that way anymore. Since 1979, these people have been terrorizing the world. They've got American blood on their hands, and here's what we accomplished in 20 days. Their missile program has been obliterated.
But
their
we saw
nuclear
the missile
program
that went
has been
towards
obliterated,
Garcia.
and they're running out of money. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine.
Yeah. So that's unfortunately Lindsey Graham, which will come handy a little later on. But Mike, if we could get that clip, it's Scott Bessent, and he's talking about the death of Robert Mueller and the fact that he sides with Trump because Trump said, quote, do you have any idea how much he hurt my feelings? If we have that clip, don't have the second Bessent clip. Okay, no problem. Anyway, we don't need the clip.
Beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Beautiful moment. The beautiful moment where, if I understood what Bessent was saying, was that in this moment of Robert Mueller's death, former director of the FBI, a Bronze Star recipient, a Purple Heart recipient, United States Marine combat veteran, is that Trump, who said, good riddance, I'm happy he's dead, he won't be around to hurt innocent people, meaning Trump anymore, that Scott Bessent explained that, yes, you have to see it through Trump's eyes, and how badly Trump was hurt. And so, if we want to be sensitive about Robert Mueller's death, we have to appreciate that it's really about Trump, I guess, is what Scott Bessent was trying to tell us after the oil jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's almost as good as having a clip. It's almost verbatim. I appreciate that. It wasn't just classless. I mean, for a guy that sent ICE squads to people's houses who sent around Charlie Kirk memes, I thought it was unbelievable. He's canonizing Charlie Kirk, self-avowed racist. He's canonizing a self-avowed violent white supremacist, martyring him. And you have a career civil servant, a guy who served with distinction his country in Vietnam, a guy who, towards the end of his life, who was quite sick, and you could see that he was pretty sick, right, when he was doing the Russia investigation. Give whatever he had left to his country. He dies of natural causes, Robert Mueller, at 81, and Donald Trump did good, and then use that as an opportunity to not only dance on his grave, but to assert the fact that he's been innocent of everything, and Robert Mueller did everything to hurt him. Robert Mueller gave him out, dude. Robert Mueller protected the office of the president when it didn't deserve to be protected. Robert Mueller did and continued to serve that country with distinction until the day he fucking died. Donald Trump won a bowling trophy in university. Donald Trump dressed up like a military guy when he went to military school and literally posted a picture of him dressed up in military garb standing next to his parents in high school and tried to pass himself off as Robert Mueller in the last 15 days. And for him to mock the death of a career civil servant like Robert Mueller that has the panache and the CV and the service record of one Robert Mueller, I thought it was, and it wasn't surprising, but I thought it might have been the lowest point of this regime, which is saying something because we've had some low points.
No, he's really despicable. He's really appalling, as we all know. And when it comes to this type of stuff, I think the only thing that's lower than Trump is all these people who get on their knees, like Scott Bessent, who try to justify it and appease it and explain it and rationalize it and celebrate it. It's just despicable.
Yeah.
It's despicable.
Yeah. It is. And I, thoughts and prayers, obviously, for the Mueller family, but at the same time, I mean, that is a sitting president, and you had an incredible write-up on this where you talked about Lincoln, and his Gettysburg Address. Now, there's comfort, that leaders give everybody else in these moments. And what I read, what you said, it was this just incredible lack of leadership, right? I mean, it's not even there. It's not even a conversation that we have around Donald Trump anymore. It really isn't. And in those moments, that's when you find men. That's when you find patriots. It's where you find people that are willing to serve their country. And in that moment, it was incredible because it typified everything that I thought Donald Trump was, that we know he is, which is just someone who doesn't give a shit about that country, its history, or the fathers and the brothers and the sisters and the uncles and the aunts that made it what it is today and the sacrifice that they made. Because that man, Robert Mueller, whether you believe in the Russia hoax or not, that man served his country with incredible distinction, Steve.
Yeah, he was a Marine officer, combat veteran of the Vietnam War, and it is not for nothing that Donald Trump is talking loosely about using the Marines to invade Karg Island in the Persian Gulf off the coast of Iran at the same moment when he's disparaging the life achievements in the service of a decorated Marine combat veteran like Robert Mueller. Again, it's just, he's somebody who has absolutely no class, that is served by this ring of cowards who go out and expose themselves every Sunday. And it's always interesting to watch because so much of the absurdism, so much of the bile, right, that they defend, all of it is so predictable. And it's a collision that's preordained to take place, same time, same place every week with usually the same cast of characters who go out and say things that are just blithely untrue, mean-spirited, awful to say. They defend the lowest and the worst of everything all the time. And it's just an astonishment of the age that largely they've gotten away with it because there's an absence of an ability to respond to it with a collection of dignity and righteousness and virtues that say this is appalling and here's why, and to make the defense of the virtue as compelling as the insult to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, you know, I remember those interviews, like Barbara Walters. She was able to call people out on their ridiculousness. Do you remember that? Like, you remember when people would be at these interviews, Barbara Walters, like, listen, I talked to the banks. They say you're poor. Screw the banks. They don't know what to talk about. He gets away with that pass everywhere. And it was also evident with Jonathan Karl on ABC. His grade was about a C plus. You had Tom Tillis, who was on the show, and he was like, yeah, you know, yeah, ICE is a bit of a problem. I get it. Should we really have them in airports? I don't know. You know, it's probably not a great idea. It's a fucking terrible idea. I don't know if you're watching some of the videos of ICE literally beating the shit out of people in fucking airports this morning all across the United States of America. Like it.
Are they doing things to people in airports? What's happening in the airports? Dude, I haven't seen any of the videos.
Oh, you haven't? Yeah, dude. Well, that was
wild?
also part of the Sunday crew, right? Everybody was talking about TSA. You've traveled a lot. I want your opinion on it. TSA walking off the job. They got 3,500 employees that are just not screening baggage. They're not, you know, helping people out at the airport. People are not getting paid. They're not going to work. You had another 400 walk off the job yesterday in LA, LaGuardia. You had an Air Canada plane literally hammer itself into a fire truck that was making its way across the runway. Steve, 2 pilots dead, several seriously injured. I mean, and I'm laughing because it's just, you know, this is the kakistocracy. This is when it all starts to catch up and you start seeing mismanagement like this, but not just mismanagement. It's the lack of accountability when it comes to having conversations about this mismanagement, which I didn't see at all. I mean, take Shannon Bream out of the mix. She didn't talk about anything other than her new book about how everything's possible with God, and then having Lindsey Graham on to talk about them Marines. Let's get them Marines in there. She gets an F.
Do we have that clip of Lindsey Graham and talking about the Marines?
Great question. Mike, do we have that clip? Lindsey Graham talking about the Marines? Yes. Stand by. Coming up.
President Trump have said this does not need to continue.
Well, I'm telling you, what needs to continue is to make sure that the largest state sponsor of terrorism can't get a nuclear weapon to blow us all up and hold us hostage. To the American people, they were 2 weeks away from having 90% enriched uranium to make 10 bombs. They've got missiles that go 4,000 kilometers. We're not going to live that way anymore. Since 1979, these people have been terrorizing the world. They've got American blood on their hands, and here's what we accomplished in 20 days. Their missile program has been obliterated.
But
their
we saw
nuclear
the missile
program
that went
has been
towards
obliterated,
Garcia.
and they're running out of money. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil, control that island, let this regime die on a vine.
There you go. You didn't hear the word Marines, but that was probably in the next 10 seconds where he's like, send in them Marines to Carg Island.
Well, he was, there's an Atlantic magazine article, and the article cautions about the use of conventional ground forces, and he is challenged with that, and he goes, he don't know what he's talking about. I'm betting on the Marines. The Marines did Iwo Jima. And it is true the Marine Corps did Iwo Jima, but as he cavalierly talks about it, you know, Iwo Jima, where the commanding general famously said valor, uncommon valor was a common virtue. It was the only Pacific Islands where American casualties exceeded Japanese casualties as the Marine Corps hopscotched across the Pacific, moving ever closer to Japan in the Pacific War. So when you look at the casualties of Iwo Jima, and you see a United States senator who, more appallingly, was an Air Force reservist and a colonel, but talking blithely about Iwo Jima as if we want the Marine Corps, as they get ready to assault Carg Island, to have Iwo Jima on their mind, which, God forbid, that should ever happen again. And it's an astonishing thing for Lindsey Graham to be saying. Just incredible, actually.
You didn't expect Shannon Bream to bring up that context there, did you?
Yeah. Shannon Bream. It's incredible. Like,
Dude.
I mean, this is all of it's going to be in a museum someday.
Yeah.
All of it's going to be in documentaries looking back. This is Shannon Bream. She'll have this 30-second role. Oh, look, that's grandma.
That's grandma selling her book at the end of an interview with Lindsey Graham where he wanted to repurpose Iwo Jima, and she sold a book called All Things Are Possible with God. I don't know if you know that at the end of each one of those shows. Yeah, that's why I give her an F2, right? It's because at the end of every show she hawks this book about the miracles that she's seen in her life from God. Never is there a conversation. And you know what I noticed this weekend too, Steve? And this is like,
Does God want her to ask any questions about that Doug Wilson guy around Pete Hegseth, around the crazy pastor who believes in slavery and taking away the rights of women to vote? I don't know. Did God put her on Fox News maybe to ask any questions of that fucking guy?
I don't think so.
Like, I don't know. Huh? Like,
but that's what I'm saying. I mean, you watch these shows and it's easy to see in everybody's roundup, ABC, scared shitless, John Carl. He's like, well, does Tom Tillis said this, and I believe him. Margaret Brennan, Kristen Welker leading the way every week. A couple of very fearless young ladies, fearless women who continue to do just an incredible job of making sure that people hold truth to account, right? But one of the things that I noticed specifically going through these shows is I'm like, man, there's only 5 of these things for 360 million people. There's only really 5 shows that they funnel people into on Sundays. And of those 5 shows, Steve, they had 5 of the same guests telling the same story. Like Mike Walls, he appeared on a couple of different programs. I've got a Mike Walls clip I'd like to play here. And this is what he repeated on every show. That's like they're funneling as many people through the contracted experience of mainstream media on a Sunday. If you could play this clip, Mike, of Mike Walls, that'd be great. Would love your thoughts.
On Friday, the president tweeted, "The Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The United States does not." And then last night, he threatened that if Iran doesn't fully open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, the U.S. will hit and obliterate their power plants, starting with the biggest one first. So which is it? Is the U.S. opening Hormuz by force or having others do it?
Well, I think it can be both. It's not necessarily mutually exclusive. I'm glad you're having NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on. I think at his urging and his leadership, we've now seen Italy, Germany, France, and a number of others commit to help with this effort.
After particularly since
so much energy is going to Europe out of the Straits. We just had the Japanese Prime Minister commit to portions of her Navy and the Japanese Navy. 80% of what's coming out of the Gulf is going to Asia. So we are seeing our allies come around, as they should. But at the same time, the president is not going to stand for this regime, as it's threatened and tried for 5 decades to hold the world's energy supplies hostage under its genocidal intent.
So some allies, like the United Kingdom, have talked about things like surveillance, anti-mining, anti-drone support for the United States, but in that appeal from the United States, I should say, in the Strait of Hormuz, but not until active combat ends. To be clear, that's what we're talking about.
Well, and the president's been clear, too. He's going to continue to pound Iran's capabilities, its missile, its naval, and its drone capability.
Yeah, there you go. Margaret Brennan, ladies and gentlemen, interviewing Mike Walls, UN ambassador. Steve, you want to talk about talking out of both sides of your mouth? And he did that on every single one of those shows. And that's as close as you got to accountability for Mike Walls. And keep in mind, we still have an update to the story, right? It's, Donald Trump is threatening everybody, saying, you need to help us in the Strait of Hormuz. He's also saying, you've got 48 hours, Iran, or we're going to destroy all of your civilian infrastructure. And he's painting that story, a congruent message from one President Donald J. Trump. And that was as close as we got to pushback. He was on 3 different shows. Margaret Brennan was as close as we got to someone saying, okay, listen, yes, the allies said they'd help, but they said after the military adventurism in the area was over, that's not something that they're helping with. And it leaves those questions that hang in the balance. And on other shows, Mike Waltz just ran everybody's show. Like he just continued to lie.
What's amazing to me is that on all of these shows is that he goes out there and let me back up. He has an audience of 1. And if you are the interviewer on one of these shows, it's zero sum. If you go back to the White House, if you're Mike Waltz and Trump is happy with you, then the interviewer of that show failed. Period. To me, right? That's the test. So they're going out. It's something of a high wire act. Trump has picked all of these people as if they were from some line of central casting in his imagination. He expects them to go out and to make Trump look good about the things that Trump has decided to do. So one of the things that Walt says there in the middle of this that he got away with, and I always try to teach candidates in debate prep that when you go on these type of shows, it's not a talking exercise, it's a listening exercise. So when he goes, they've obstructed the world's oil supply for 47 years. Now, time out. The Iranian regime is terrible. It's murderous. It's theocratic. It's abusive towards women. It's the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. It's long aspired to get a nuclear weapon, but has it done that? Has it obstructed the world's oil for 47 years? I don't think it's done that. When he talks about the genocidal intent, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? The Iranian genocidal intent for the last 47 years. So there was oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, and this crisis has been precipitated by Donald Trump's actions. And really the question, the ranting that he is being asked about is Führer-like in the Berlin bunker where Hitler's moving around phantom armies. Right? What's he talking about here? The country's at war under false pretenses, shifting pretenses if you're an optimist, delusional optimist, right? You say we're at war with these people because of 18 different shifting reasons, but putting that aside, all of the casus belli that he just outlined, well, is that really true? That is not true.
No.
And no one stops to go deeper there, even blowing through a commercial break to get at the ground truth on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these are things that someone like you notice. These are,
What did you give Margaret Brennan? What was your grade?
Oh, I gave her a C-.
You gave her a C-.
Kristen Welker got an A. I mean, she did well, right? Margaret Brennan got a C-.
She's a very nice person.
Who, Margaret Brennan or Kristen Welker?
They're both nice people, but Kristen Welker is a lovely person.
Yeah,
lovely. Yeah. And but she's had some tough moments but it's good to see she did good. Do we have any clips?
Yeah, I believe we've got a Welker clip. Do we have another Welker clip for Mike? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Duffy.
So Sean Duffy, let's get to Sean Duffy, and then we've got a Trump clip I want to get to. This is her, Kristen Welker. This is Sean Duffy doing his very best to tell everybody that, hey, this is a Democratic issue. All the 3,500 TSA employees that walked off the job, fact that we're not paying people. So let's play this Kristen Welker with Sean Duffy, ladies and gentlemen.
lot of the starting salaries at TSA, they're right around $50,000. So if you live in, one of the big cities of America, LA or New York or Miami, it's hard for these individuals already to make their ends meet. But without getting paychecks, it's even that much more challenging. And so they're going to take other jobs to put food on the table and pay the rent. So I do think it's going to get much worse. And as it gets worse, I think that puts pressure on the Congress to come to a resolution. Democrats have to say, you know what, we're not going to defund this. We're going to actually work together, have some common sense reform that the president will work with us on. And, let's get America working again. And the last thing you want as you travel is to deal with political fights at the airport. Let that stay in Congress. But don't extract pain out of me and my family as I'm trying to just go to Florida and get some sun on my bones during spring break. A lot of the starting.
There you go. He's just trying to go to Florida, get some sun on his bones for spring break. And the one thing Ms. Welker did not do was follow up with that, which was, hey, you didn't say you're blaming the Democrats. This is you. This is your bill. You're trying to get this passed. It is you that is choosing not to pay TSA agents. It is you that is choosing not to pay people. It is you. It is nobody else. And that is why she didn't get an A+ or anything higher than an A-. But I will say this is that, for the most part, I mean, she was the most thorough out of everybody. I wonder in those interviews with people, Kristen Welker, Steve, are the guests setting the tone? Are the guests setting that agenda? Does Sean Duffy come in there and obviously it's a tough topic. It's a big issue. It's spring break. Lineups, TSA around the corner, out the door in Atlanta at the hub, Chicago O'Hare. I get that. But I mean, there is a war going on, and not only is there a war going on, but to your earlier point with Mike Waltz, you said there was just this allowance that you can paint Democrats as the ones that are responsible for the shutdown when it's your regime that's doing it.
I still can't believe that Puck is the Secretary of Defense. Amazing. Sean Duffy. It's extraordinary. Secretary of Transportation.
Right.
From the real world.
Those are his qualifications, dude. We leaned into it, right? Like today. I've got a post up at deanblundell.substack.com that talks about this, is that Air Canada has a spotless record. Today, you've got 2 dead pilots on the runway at LaGuardia. LaGuardia is shut down right now. It's shut down until 2 p.m. This is the busiest one of, if not the busiest airports in the fucking world,
So the issue why the government is shut down, and we can get into this a little bit, and this is part of my frustration with Democrats, is that once you stake out a position and you plant the flag, you have to hold your territory. You have to hold your line. And what the shutdown is about is that Democrats have said no more masked secret police that are operating outside the rule of law, outside the Constitution, that think the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments and the First Amendments and the Second Amendments don't apply to them. The 10th Amendment doesn't apply to them. We're not going to have masked secret police, masked secret agents running around the country. Now, we know a little bit more, by the way, about some of this in the aftermath of the Kristi Noem debacle and departure. As it turns out, her lover, Corey Lewandowski, without Senate confirmation, without any statutory authority, as a, quote, special government employee, is in fact the commander of all of this, with Greg Bovino reporting up to him. So the Democrats drew a line in the sand and they said, no, you have to make a decision. You lead the executive branch of the government, but we're not going to tolerate this. We control the purse strings of government. and we'll shut this department down. And one of the implications of that in order to sustain a mass secret police, which the country didn't have 2 years ago, Donald Trump is willing to shut down the TSA, which the country didn't have until 26 years ago. Now, one of the great ironies of this is that all of these ICE guys who have now been sent to the airports to do who knows what, but none of them know how to run the security scanners or do any of those things. But the ICE people who are standing around are not wearing masks.
Yeah, did you see that?
Right? So that's the whole point. If you want to do immigration enforcement, which is the law, it has to be done unmasked, which is the Democratic point. Right? Trump hasn't flooded ICE into airports masked. They're unmasked. If they can be unmasked in the airport, why can't they be unmasked in Minneapolis on the street?
Do you know the answer to that? Do you know why they're unmasked in the airport?
Because they're inside. I don't know. I don't know, but it makes no sense, right? They're being photographed in the airport.
Yeah.
But again, right, this argument in the United States, you have all sorts of federal judges that stare down all sorts of notorious mobsters, all manner of prosecutor who stare down all type of killer without masks on. And so again, the inability to constantly make an argument about what's happening, why it's happening, what's required. Right? Your Democrats should be very comfortable saying, if what's required is to stand in line for 7 hours to get a message to Donald Trump that he's got to take the masks off these guys, that's what's required. We're not voting for it.
Yeah, that's all the context that was missing from every one of those shows this weekend, Steve. Coincidentally, right? No one talked about, they didn't talk about the issues, whether it was this week or State of the Union. They would talk about the TSA strike. They wouldn't really get into why, the impetus of it. And there was 1.2 during the weekend, and not one of these news shows covered this, not one. But there's one point this weekend, Steve, where we got news that Donald Trump himself, and this is what I thought was fascinating, that Donald Trump himself had no problem sending ICE into these airports, that they were going to be in blue state airports specifically. That's what he was targeting. He was going to target these blue state airports. And it dawned on me that this is immigrations and customs, right? This is what they're trained for. This is kind of where they fucking should be. They should be in airports. They should be, talking to people when they come across the border. They should be enforcing immigration and customs laws on behalf of the United States. It's almost like this is exactly where they should be to begin with, right? This is, and to your point, not wearing masks at all. And I watched video after video after video of these ICE guys. They were very different in the airport than they were walking the streets of Minneapolis with Greg Bovino, masked, with weapons in their hands. Very fucking different. Very demure, saying hi to people, waving to people, shaking hands, because you could see who they were. You could see their faces. And he had a kaleidoscope of races that were, which is what like, I just assumed they were just a bunch of white nationalists that wanted to go and whoop some migrant ass. But you had Hispanic guys, you had black guys, you had Asian men, women, you had a real cross section of people. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, the humanity involved here is very different than what I had expected in the story that was told to me. But to your point, every single one of these unmasked ICE agents doing their job, enforcing customs immigration, enforcing those laws, they were kind as punch. I saw one ICE guy's like, the concession's down here. There's a Starbucks. You can go get yourself some TGI Fridays.
Yeah, I got a beautiful TGI Fridays. They're nice now.
Yeah.
They've turned nice in the airports. Listen, I think that as we look ahead to what comes next, I want to see a Democratic Party as a reform party. And I want to see hundreds of pieces of legislation passed by the next Democratic president, Democratic Congress, and there shouldn't be a TSA. TSA was created in the aftermath of 9/11 because the regime of independent security contractors had failed, and there was a lack of imagination. And of course, the overreaction to this is we need to have a security state response of a new federal agency with scores of tens of thousands of agents, officers with badges on. And TSA agent dresses completely differently than a Canadian security screener, for instance. A Canadian security screener doesn't have any of the trappings of law enforcement, right, attached to them. So the TSA guys are dressed like a police officer used to be dressed, and every police officer is now dressed like a member of SEAL Team 6 in the United States, right, including the ICE guys running around. But we don't need to have a TSA. What we need to have is competent, professional privatization, state-of-the-art security to protect commercial and civil air travel. That's the important goal. That's what the standard has to be. And so these agencies, Customs and Border Patrol, to my mind, has to be broken up. It's in Canada, it's the Canadian Border Protection Agency, I think. Maybe you call it the U.S. Border Protection Agency, but the uniforms have to go. All of that, all of those things, all of those trappings, all of those symbols of this era need to go. And we need to demilitarize the police in the United States. We need to demilitarize the alphabet soup of federal agencies. I don't know if you keep the FBI, if you don't change the name of it. The truth of the matter is, from the civil rights era through this era, there's a history of a lot of disgrace, a lot of failure, a lot of abuse in the FBI. And maybe that needs a new name. Maybe the Department of Justice building has to go. It was an iconic structure in DC, but it's completely degraded and defaced, and maybe it needs something with a new beginning. But at any rate, all of these things have to be talked about, have to be contemplated in response to the abuses of the rule of law and justice that have taken place over this Trump era.
Yeah, wipe the slate clean. I don't disagree. Now's the time to do it. Last thing, before I let you go, Steve, everybody, Steve Schmidt, the warning, make sure you hit the Chiron at the top, part of the Save America movement, one of the founders of the Save America movement. You got to have whiplash, being a political strategist and watching the just incredible strategic ambiguity of the Trump regime. A couple days ago, he said Iran had 48 hours to allow the safe passage of 3,200 tankers, super tankers that are currently trapped in the Strait of Hormuz, because he's such a brilliant strategist that's what's going on. Then he said he was going to obliterate them and destroy all of their civilian infrastructure in ways that nobody's ever seen it before. You've never seen this before. And then this morning, wow, says in a Truth Social post, hey, guys, I got great news. I got great news. We had secret meetings that no one's even heard about, not even the Iranian regime, because we've destroyed all their communications. So we had these secret meetings that nobody knows about with Jared Witkoff. Everything's good. We're going to do a 5-day delay. We're going to pause. We're not going to bomb anybody because Iran's coming to the table. We're going to get what we want. It's going to be over soon. Don't worry about it. Then we had the stock market bounce, came back 2 trillion, lost another trillion. So a circular pattern of 3 trillion in fucking wonky losses that seemed to happen with a bunch of insider trading just before the announcement took place. So we'll put that to the side real quick. And then the state of Iran and some of Iran's proxies were asked, "Hey, is this true? Is this true? You guys, you came to the table with the United States. You're going to surrender. You're going to give them what they want." And the Iranian regime, who I believe more than I believe the Trump regime, was like, not only did we not have a conversation, nobody here knows anything about what he said. We're just reading this for the first time. And then you kind of just started to spiral out and ask other, trusted Five Eyes people about, whether or not there was a conversation. Not only was there not a conversation, there wasn't a meeting, there wasn't an email, there wasn't a text, there wasn't a WhatsApp, there wasn't a signal, there was nothing. This is just Trump deciding it's Taco Monday, Steve. It's over. I have nowhere to go but down. And so I'm going to announce something that didn't happen, and I'm going to end the war. That's what it looks like to me. But I want your thoughts. I mean, I don't have whiplash because I expect it, but this is just fucking enough. But it's also so fucking funny because it just keeps happening. He just continues to say shit.
And he's going to take the rest of the day off to watch Gallipoli. So there should be no lack of imagination about the stupidity of all of this, that Donald Trump's ability to command reality into submission on a stolen election in the United States is a real thing. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. What happens in front of the world when you just make up things in the middle of a war that you started and you simply declare, well, now it's at its end. We won, they surrendered. And what next, right? What happens next in that crazy scenario? The alternate scenario that plays out, right, adjacent to that is the escalation scenario where Trump, who's inconsistent minute to minute, is in this yin yang, in this push pull, where in this fantasy, right, where Lindsey Graham is talking about Iwo Jima and the Marines, and Trump is probing on a second-by-second basis the reaction of the Fox News lady and all the Fox News hosts. What's she thinking? What's Maria Bartiromo saying on her show, right? So ever closer we come, right, to the landing craft hitting the shore, or a helicopter assault. But when you look at everything that is involved in securing the positions of those Marines, of those soldiers on these islands, it requires holding the high ground on the Iranian coast. So it's a very complicated military operation. It's going to involve substantial amounts of casualties. And right now that you have these deeply unserious people involved in the planning of it, like it's a video game, like it's a show, a reality show that they are improvising and that they're trying simultaneously to withdraw from while planning in real time to escalate. And it's all happening on television. It's all completely incoherent. And there's a real absence of passionate outcry and pushback in opposition to it on a moral basis, to the frivolousness of it, to the dishonesty of it, to the recklessness of it by the Schumer-led Senate. and by too many Democrats in the United States. This is a moment for utter clarity against this insanity.
Oh, dude, glad to hear you say it. Chris Murphy says the same thing, you know, and I
He's
think
great.
Chuck Schumer better start, you know, he said it this weekend. Chuck Schumer better start looking behind him because he didn't get a vote of confidence. Keem Jeffries didn't get a vote of confidence. I mean, you know, you talk about that party being a reform party, and that is such welcome news when you talk about that old two-party system and how ineffective, and you pointed this out many times. I mean, yeah, Donald Trump sucks, but he beat the fucking Democratic Party of the United States of America twice for all the warts that we knew he had.
Twice?
Number one. Yeah.
Twice?
Yeah.
Twice? And that's a huge question that, you know, depending on what the mix of candidates is in 2027, 2028 will be a, you know, top tier or a secondary issue, but it's going to be an issue. You know, it's the entire issue if Kamala Harris is a candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is a guy they beat. This is, I want to play this last clip for you before I let you go. Steve Schmidt, The Warning. Everybody, please go give him a sub. Chiron at the top, of course, with the Save America movement. Please subscribe to them as well. They're the largest citizen-run advocacy group in the United States of America. And they are global, and I am proud to throw my hat in the ring with this group of beautiful people and patriots. But to your point, I want to play this last clip. This is Donald Trump. You know, apparently if you get him on Air Force One or just ahead of Air Force One, there's more pushback in those questions, in those scrums, because this was a great question. Someone asked Trump about that tweet and his Truth Social post going, so you had a meeting, did you, with the Iranians? Can you tell us about it? Mike, if you can play the clip.
Steve Witkoff speaking with Mr. President. A top person, don't forget. We've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. People that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place. Mr. President, again, Mr. President, I know you've deployed. Because I don't want him to be killed. Okay, I don't want him to be killed. Mr. President, you've deployed. Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants that job right now. You know, nobody's exactly looking forward to being the head of that particular country, but perhaps we'll be able to solve that problem. Mr. President,
Yeah.
He's talking to Mo Larry in West Palm Beach.
People believe it though, dude. Like that's the I cannot get over it.
He has done this my entire life. He's been a public figure since the late 1970s through the early 1980s, and I could show you, you know, if we assign somebody to go and to give us 40,000 clips of Donald Trump bullshitting his way through an interview with, some people are saying, about 1,000 different subjects, it would be a very, very easy exploration and excavation. And so there are no top people. We're not in contact. There are no open negotiations. And you see the dishonesty and the cavalierness towards it.
Yeah.
While young Americans are in harm's way. It's comical and it's tragic.
Yeah.
It's appalling and it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It is psychotic. It is deranged, and the American people are responsible for it.
Well said, and responsible for what they get, and they will not get upset. And that is what the Trump regime is telling you. That is what mainstream media is telling you. Please go to the Save America Movement Substack and check out the latest, specifically when it comes to the scorecard. You can check out the entire scorecard from this weekend. Yeah, let's put up the scorecard. Let's have a little peek.
I want to make some revisions on the grades. I want to look at
all right. You got the scorecard, Mike? You got the Save America Movement Sunday
you gave Kristen
scorecard.
Welker this weekend. She got a B-.
Yep. Oh,
You
we're
gave
B minus.
Margaret Brennan an A-.
Yes.
You gave Jonathan Karl a D+. You gave Shannon Bream an F. 2 weekends of Fs. The Canadian judge, very tough.
Yeah.
On Fox News. State of the Union, Dana Bash dropping from a B+ to a C-.
That's right.
But Kristen Welker climbing from a C- to a B-.
Yeah.
And Margaret Brennan coming on up. Jonathan Karl dropping a little. We don't have the regular in there. We don't have George Stephanopoulos. We have the replacements in there, but we have all of them together: a B-, an A-, a D+, an F, a C-. I mean, you're not getting into Harvard with those grades collectively. That's the team there, right? Right? You're not.
Well, and I got to be honest, I feel like I was too kind to Shannon Bream the first week. That was the first week where you're like, dude, I wish I had you grading my math tests in fucking high school. So I had to get real. So I apologize. But yeah, if you go to deanblundell.substack.com, you can check it out. Week 3 scorecard. Who is going up, who is going down, why they're going up and down, what was asked. And it's always, yeah, I think with each one of these pieces, it's always what they don't cover. It's always what they allow people to get away with. It's never so much what they didn't say or didn't do, but contraction being what it is and the State of the Union being what it is, just another disaster if you weren't named Margaret Brennan or Kristen Welker this weekend as the Dead Air feature continues. It's week 3.
And
Go to
that's him. And that's Duffy. That's Sean Duffy from back then. That's
was it Buck?
That's Buck. And he's the Secretary of Defense now. That's amazing. And he's got all those Christian nationalist tattoos.
That's right. Deuce Volt. Yeah. He's going to get him.
Can I just say like one last thing about Scott Bessent is, over the next 20, 25 years, as history makes its judgment against him, it's going to be very brutal for the guy. It's going to be very brutal.
Why?
I think history is a brutal judge. I think the world will become very small. Look at Kristi Noem already. What life is like outside the gates, outside the patio.
Outside the compound.
No motorcade, no government housing, no Air Fuck One, none of it. None of it.
What is she doing? I thought she was running Shield of the Americas, Steve.
No, but I'm going to tell you something. This Corey Lewandowski, and we got to talk about this. We'll talk about this on Friday when we get to the end of the week. But Corey Lewandowski's in a lot of trouble. These contracts, the advertising campaign, it looks like a couple things have been established. Looks like about $33 million in fees were generated out of that spending. So who got the $33 million? Is the question, and how did it kick back to Corey? And Corey Lewandowski was really running the Department of Homeland Security. And what I would say is, if you have a situation where Corey Lewandowski is running the Department of Homeland Security, you got to get rid of the Department of Homeland Security. You got to break it up. You have to put the Coast Guard back, for example, with the Department of Defense. Need to break up this agency that's become a real threat to the liberty of the American people.
Well said. Thanks for doing this, dude. As always, Steve Schmidt, The Warning, please give him a sub anywhere you find Steve Schmidt. He is on Twitter as well, even though he doesn't spend time there. I know he's deeply convicted about that as well. But you can get his content there too.
And remember, if you see ICE in the airports, they're nice now. They're not ICE anymore. They're nice.
Yeah. Give yourself an extra 10 hours if you're going anywhere this weekend, everybody.
Be like, you see those ICE guys, be like, where's the TGI Fridays? Can I get you a milkshake?
Thanks for taking your mask off, guys.
You look great without a mask.
Yeah, nice to see your faces. What's your name? That kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're a teenager, it's to go up and talk to them. I'm thinking about joining ICE. I really like the videos.
Love the work that you guys
You know what
put
I don't
together.
like seeing, and just like a last word, is that I know the lines are long, but I don't like seeing Christy No videos still going on at the airport. Right, she's gone. Like but they still got her video.
Are they still playing
there.
those videos?
They're still playing them.
Oh, yeah,
playing
yeah.
them.
Well, it's because they spent so much money on the first set of videos. They don't have enough money to do new videos with the new
Right,
DHS.
they
Mark
have to.
Wayne, yeah.
And they can't get him through the filming because he can't read so good.
Mark Wayne.
Yeah. So, I like some people are saying that they've done 972 takes of
Mark
the new
Wayne.
video, but he can't do it because he really can't pronounce the word airplane. And it's
There's a problem with TSA.
problem.
Say it again. It's the 3 letters, Mark Wayne.
And so that transportation is a 3-syllable word is tough for them, and can't get through it. So they got 972 takes down. They can't get it together, and they're gonna keep trying. But they got that Christy Nome video still up, and I don't like it.
They should get rid of it. Well, she's got to make sense. Thanks, dude. It's like leaving, firing the employee of the month and then leaving their picture up on the wall. I mean, you can't do it.
You can't do it. It's like that restaurant. Idea. It's a restaurant in Copenhagen with the crazy chef, the Noma, best restaurant in the world. Like you can't leave that guy's portrait up there.
No. You got to get him down.
You got to take him down. You got to get the Hegseth portrait down, the Cash Patel portrait down.
Dude, I haven't heard you once complain. You travel more than anybody. I see people complaining about lineups and security, fucking lineups, and being frisked by 15 people. You haven't said a word. Not one word.
No, you gotta be able to navigate the airport with grace, Dean. The stoic determination.
It's just nice because you're like the only American not bitching about lineups at airports.
No, but I do know this is we got a broken air traffic control system and at LaGuardia Airport yesterday. You had an air traffic controller put a fire truck on the runway, and a Canadian Air Canada jet, regional jet, slammed into it.
Yeah.
And we're talking about appropriations of $200 billion for Trump's adventure in Iran. And the air traffic control system's been fucked up for 25 years. And it hasn't been fixed. And these airports are dangerous and they're congested. Burbank Airport on the West Coast is in competition with LaGuardia as the most dangerous airport in the country. And we're going to have accidents, and we're going to have more accidents. And part of the reason we have these accidents is because at the end of the day, despite the fact that an enormous percentage of the population flies all the time, the people who fly obviously don't give a fuck enough about their safety to tolerate a dipshit like Sean Duffy from the real world being the fucking Secretary of Transportation, which is an amazing thing in a country of 330 million people that sets all the world's rules for transportation safety standards. It's just astonishing.
Yeah, it is, and it ended poorly again yesterday. Worst 365 that America's ever had in terms of air traffic and safety at each one of your airports around the United States of America. Just statistically, it has been the worst year on record, whether it's mid-air collisions. Yeah, it's been a really terrible year, but it takes a while to catch up, and it has caught up. And my thoughts and prayers with the family that came from Montreal. They had some family members that passed away yesterday. You had a couple of Air Canada pilots that passed away the other day. And you had one air traffic controller, which is against the rules. When you hear about it, you had one air traffic controller at LaGuardia managing 2 emergencies. And that's why he sent this fire truck across the runway and didn't know. And so you're supposed to have one air traffic controller per emergency to that point. they don't have enough, and they don't get paid, and they've been asked to show up and do their patriotic duty. Well, that patriotic duty stops when you can't feed your fucking family, to your point, right? And to your better point, you've got the real world guy who used to run around with his just in his gitch, hot tub to hot tub on Big Brother and Real World on MTV shows, who doesn't have any education whatsoever when it comes to managing any kind of infrastructure in any capacity whatsoever, running the NTSB, running the Department of Transportation. So it'll get worse before it gets better. Sorry to end off on that. I know you got to travel.
Government of whack jobs.
Come to Canada,
Government of whack
dude.
jobs.
Just come back to Canada. End of March. See you soon.
Soon enough,
buddy.
Pete.
Appreciate you doing that.
Got it.
Talk to you soon. Steve Schmidt, ladies and gentlemen, the Save America Movement. Please go and subscribe. Please go and donate. Please go to the saveamericamovement.org. And check them out. And please subscribe to Steve Schmidt at The Warning, deanblundell.substack.com. Thanks all. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.